You are listening to the Air Raid Hour with host Judge Mathis, dog, Tilt Money, dog, presented by the fine folks over at the Cover One Sports Network, dogs. Bills Mafia, let's go!
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together we are the Bills Guys. You can find us on Twitter at the Bills Guys. This show is presented by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza, which we'll get to in a moment. But before we get started today, Jessica Tennis saying, hey, is Judge me picking Kansas City this year? I made it clear that my expectation, it's not reality, but my expectation is the Buffalo Bills should be able to win every single football game they play in this year, as long as Josh Allen's playing quarterback. So I will be picking the Buffalo Bills today, but as we know, and I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers are finding out the hard way right now, any given Sunday, you can lose to an inferior football team. So, and I'm not saying the Chiefs are inferior because they're a very, very good football team. This one's about as 50-50 as you get, but I do think the Buffalo Bills are the better football team. Josh Allen is obviously a huge part of that. Let's get right to it. I don't actually have the Chiefs inactives in front of me, but we do have the Buffalo Bills inactives, as of course it goes right off the screen here as I'm about to talk about it. But a little bit of a change in the Bills inactives this week. They got a lot of players who are healthy. Jordan Phillips is playing. So Brandon Bryant is one of those inactives. Some of the other inactives, Jake Kumaro, which we obviously already knew, he is out because of that high ankle sprain. The other inactives, and here's the big one, Zach Moss is out of the lineup today for the Buffalo Bills. The Bills choosing instead to go with Tommy Sweeney, a third tight end, which is not something they have done this year. Balon Spector and Justin Murray, along with, as the aforementioned Brandon Bryant, are the other Bills inactives. So a little bit of a shocker here to start the show, Dave. And if you were, or if anyone was listening to the Cover One Twitter Spaces with the Cover One crew, guys like Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, this might not be a surprise that the Buffalo Bills rolled three tight ends this week. And Joe Bisaglia was sort of hinting towards that as well over the course of the week. And the reason for that is the Chiefs give up the most yards, or 10 yards per carry, against 12 personnel. So last year, the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs struggled to get Stephon Diggs the football. And a lot of teams against the Kansas City Chiefs this year are using 12 personnel on first and second down to throw the football, bringing that safety up, making the Chiefs go with a single high look instead of a two high look, and getting their receivers the football. And they're doing so at an average of 10 yards per pass. So that might be the reason why you see an inactive Zach Moss and an active Tommy Sweeney. Not that Tommy Sweeney is going to be part of that 12 personnel, but if Dawson Knox or Quentin Morris go down, they want that safety net so they can continue running that 12 personnel. Dave, what are your thoughts on this move and the inactive list as well?
I mean, I think it makes sense, right? Based on what you described. I also think that if you take a look at sort of how the Bills have been running the ball the last couple of weeks as well, you know, you're not really getting a ton of contribution from Zach Moss necessarily in the running game. I'm not saying like he's not getting his chances. He had a nice yards per carry average, like because of that one big run against the Dolphins. But Devin Singletary only had 6 rushing attempts last week, right? I mean, Josh Allen had 6 rushing attempts last week, or 7 rushing attempts last week. James Cook got some run, obviously, towards the end of the game. So I think if you're the Bills, it's also a factor of like, you're probably not going to be running the ball a ton in this game anyway, as it stands, knowing that this has the makings of a potential shootout. And you're going to kind of try to go strength on weakness here if you're the Bills. And that's the passing game of the Bills against the Chiefs' pass defense. So obviously it's not the easiest thing to do to run it up the middle against the likes of Chris Jones, etc. So having Devin Singletary and James Cook and really Josh Allen as well as an additional, quote, runner of the ball, it's not a total shock to me, especially if you kind of figure out or kind of predict how this game might go. Yeah. Probably not a ton of running from the Bills in this game either way. So
yeah, Pops Mafia asked if this is Spector's first inactive. I believe, and I'd have to go back and double check, I believe he was inactive week 1 against the Rams. but he has been active since then. So he has been a staple of this lineup for the
Right.
past couple of weeks. So this is different. I think 9 DBs. This is the first time we've done 9 DBs, I think, since week 1. Christian Benford and Cam Lewis are both active for the Buffalo Bills today. I think they're a little bit more banged up in their secondary than they are at linebacker. So that should be interesting to see how it affects special teams, because Balon Spector's been down there on kick and punt coverage. Man, that guy, bad out of hell. He's been playing really well on these teams units. Taiwan Jones all week with a hamstring injury as well. So they might have wanted that extra DB like Cam Lewis or Christian Benford to gun if the aforementioned Taiwan Jones is not able to complete or finish the game. So that could be a reasoning behind Balon Spector sitting as well. We're going to get to the Chiefs and actives in a moment. Before that, we've got our first game prediction coming in from your boy Lettuce. I always appreciate you, your boy. He says, let's go Buffalo Bills 42, Chiefs 27. Bills have a 2-game lead on the 1 seed going into the bye week. Boy, would that be absolutely exceptional. And I'm feeling pretty confident, and we're going to dive into this more over the course of the show, that the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to put up a ton of points today. Obviously, they have to go out there and actually do it and execute. But I think all the recipe is there for the Buffalo Bills to score a ton of points today on offense. But Dave, I know you said you have the Chiefs inactive. So what do you got here for the Chiefs inactive list?
Yep. So Chiefs inactives are running back Ronald Jones. He's pretty much been inactive most of the season. Safety Brian Cook, quarterback Shane Buechele, cornerback Rashad
Shane
Fenton.
Buechele. Well, SMU grad.
Excuse me. Josh Kindo, one of our kind of draft, one of the guys we liked in the draft process. Darian Kennard, another guy we liked in the draft process, and Taylor Stallworth. So the big name, obviously, is Rashad Fenton being out, which we kind of already figured. But a couple secondary members there out with Fenton and Brian Cook, the promising young safety.
All right, Brendan P says it. Tilt kickoff predictions today. What do you got?
This is because last week I was talking about how kickoffs, I didn't really care. I didn't think they were that important. Like, just let it go through the end zone. And of course, Taiwan Jones mishandles that first kickoff. I'll tell you this, Brendan. I think maybe after last week, they're just going to let it sail through. Harrison Butker's back for the Chiefs today. Wouldn't expect him to be putting a lot of balls that are returnable for the Bills today. But you never know. They might try to pin him in the corner and try to force him to return it. A lot of teams have been trying that. But I mean, Khalil Shakir looked like he once they kind of took Taiwan Jones out of that role last week, he looked like he was fine. He had a nice return. So I'm hoping that kick returns are largely uneventful. If one goes our way, great. But I kind of hope they're largely uneventful today.
We got a great question from Eb Tide here. He says, how do you expect the snaps in the slot to be shared today? We're going to get to that in just one moment. But first, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. That hand-cut, cup-and-char pepperoni. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to your home. And I can tell you from experience, it's just as good as getting it fresh from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, back to Tide's question here, because this is a good one. We have Isaiah McKenzie back in the lineup today.
Yep.
I'm expecting the Chiefs to probably drop a ton of guys back and try to just generate pressure with 4 or 5 guys like the Buffalo Bills will do, especially with the injuries in their secondary. That will leave a lot open to players underneath, whether it be the running backs, James Cook, Devin Singletary, or the tight ends, Dawson Knox, Quentin Morris, or the slot receiver, guys like Isaiah McKenzie and Khalil Shakir. Isaiah McKenzie, traditionally, we had these debates last year, is better against that man-to-man defense with his speed. You saw the way he absolutely brutalized the New England Patriots last year, who run strictly man. The Chiefs, I'm expecting them to drop back into a lot of zone today. So who do you think leads the snap share for the Buffalo Bills today in the slot? Do you think it's going to be Isaiah McKenzie, or do you think it's going to be Khalil Shakir? Coming off his biggest game of his career, the only one he's really gotten a real opportunity, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because McKenzie's obviously coming off the injury, but it's not like it's a, it's a head injury. Obviously, it's serious, but if he's cleared to play, there really should be no ill effects, right? At this point, like, he's not going to be slowed by anything like an ankle, like if it was some other kind of injury. And Shakir coming off his best game. So, like, your knee jerk reaction would be to say, oh, this is like Khalil Shakir's time to take this role. But I, in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend, right? I think that, I think that you will see a decent amount of McKenzie today. And Jessica has a nice comment here, 50-50 in my opinion. I think you'll see both, right? I do think you'll see both.
Mhm.
I think it's a good situation for Isaiah McKenzie. It's a really good situation for both, right? Because there's not going to be a huge
Mhm.
amount of pressure on either guy individually if you're sharing snaps, especially in a big game like this. Shakir, the biggest spot of his career, obviously. The Pittsburgh game's huge for him for building confidence, but in reality, that game from an opponent standpoint was fairly inconsequential in the big
Mhm.
picture. This is a huge game. Isaiah McKenzie's played in this game before, coming back from injury. So like I like the idea of a split here, but to your point, if the Chiefs are mainly going to show man-to-man defense today and they kind of stick
Mhm.
to that, it would be Isaiah McKenzie. But if they drop back in zone, given their shortcomings in the secondary, which I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to take that approach, then you could have Shakir, making his mark as well. So
Mhm.
I would say it might be split. Yeah, it might be split.
Yeah, we got a bunch of people coming in with some comments here. Nick Terry says he took the over on receiving yards for McKenzie, and Richard Forbes thinks it'll be more 60-40, 70-30. And like I said, we're going to see a lot of two tight ends today as well, probably, as that is something Kansas City has shown that they struggle to defend in the passing game with those two tight end looks. And Quentin Morris really had a big game last week as well. A little bit of a red zone update here. The New York Jets just blocked a punt for a touchdown and are now up 17-3 on your wife's Green Bay Packers. So she's probably in the other room, not too happy right now at the moment, watching the Green Bay Packers continue to struggle this season, losing to the second week in a row to a team from New Jersey. That's always rough. All right.
Uh,
So we typically get things started, not with the offense. So we're going to shift our focus a little bit here, but we usually get things started with the Buffalo Bills defense, and then we work our way to what everybody wants to talk about right before kickoff with the Buffalo Bills offense. So let's start with the Bills defense versus the Chiefs offense. First of all, what personnel are we going to be seeing from the Kansas City Chiefs? Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. At running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has taken 45% of the snaps this year. Jerick McKinnon, 42%. They do have Isaiah Pacheco, 13% snap share from the running back position. They hardly ever use the fullback, Trey Burton. When they do, 10% clip. At wide receiver, it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 75% of the time. Juju Smith-Schuster, 71% of the time. And then they mix in Mecole Hardman, about 52% of their snap share this year, Sky Moore, 20%, and Justin Watson at 19%. They have been using a lot of their tight ends this year outside of Travis Kelce. Kelce is obviously at an 80% snap share, Noah Gray, 49%, and Fortson comes in with 22%. And he's been big for them in the red zone this year as well. Their offensive line is pretty solid. Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Andrew Wiley. So let's get started with that offensive line. The Chiefs have invested a lot of draft capital and a lot of money in that offensive line. Likewise, the Buffalo Bills have invested a ton of money and draft capital into their defensive line. This could be the matchup that decides this game, the Chiefs offensive line versus the Bills defensive line. So Dave, what are your thoughts on this matchup? And who do you think wins at the end of the day, this matchup between the Chiefs O-line and the Bills D-line?
I mean, the Chiefs O-line is very good. And don't get me wrong, but we did
Mhm.
see the Raiders have a little bit of success last week in getting to Mahomes. Max Crosby was able to get to Mahomes a couple times, and outside of Max Crosby, really the Raiders' defensive line is not nearly on the level as the Bills' defensive line. I think I give the Bills' defensive line a slight edge here,
Mhm.
given their health. Jordan Phillips active today, as you mentioned. They do have their pretty much full allotment of guys on the defensive line, and they're going to be able to rotate guys in and have waves and waves of guys coming at this Chiefs offensive line. Would expect that the Chiefs would be passing a lot in this game, so that offensive line is going to get a test, and the Bills are going to have hopefully the horses to keep guys fresh as it heads into the third, fourth quarter of this game. So I would say this: I think in the early stages of the game, you might see the Bills defensive line, I wouldn't say struggle, but maybe not get home or not really get close to Mahomes. But I think you can
Mhm.
see as the game wears on that the Bills defensive line maybe takes over this game, given that they have that ability to wave guys. So I do think it's strength on strength, but I do give the Bills group a slight edge just for their depth. They have Von Miller so playing great this year. And I do think that over the course of the game that they will tire down that Chiefs offensive
Yeah.
line. And they have they have given up some sacks. We saw it, like I said last week, Max Crosby. So I'll give the Bills defensive line a slight edge, but it is strength on strength here.
Yeah, you got by chance coming in saying, I feel like McKinnon is going to have a good game. And there's a chance for that, I think, because of the way the Bills are probably going to try to defend Patrick Mahomes. Like, you don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. You don't do it. Just like you don't blitz Josh Allen, at least conventionally, because these guys just eat when you blitz them and they put up insane statistics. So the Buffalo Bills are probably going to be two deep shell a ton of time. They're going to drop back everyone, and they're going to rely on Ed Oliver, Von Miller, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, Jordan Phillips. They're going to need these guys to pressure and stop the run with four guys. The Bills blitz at a league low rate of just over 11%. Right. I think you're going to see a lot of the same philosophies we used in the Rams game week 1, where 73% of our defense, while that game was still a game, was a light box. And 93% of our defense, when that game was still a game before garbage time, was too high shell. And I think you're going to see a lot of that, and the Bills are probably going to give the Chiefs a lot of stuff underneath. So a guy like Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they could have a pretty decent game, but the Bills do have to limit that, especially when the Chiefs get down into the red zone. This could come down to a game of who scores touchdowns and who kicks field goals. Like, that could be what this game turns into. One other thing I have on my list here, I think the Micah Hyde absence, this is the first time where it could literally be noticeable. I know we got a little bit of a taste of it against Miami, but Miami's offense was barely on the field in that game for a number of different circumstances. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, they have legitimate take the top off of the defense speed. We've always had Micah Hyde there roaming center field. We are known for not letting teams throw the ball deep. In that AFC divisional round last year, Patrick Mahomes attempted one pass over 20 yards. So it's going to be a real test, I think, today for the Buffalo Bills to see if they can continue doing that to opposing offenses with quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes without Micah Hyde roaming center field. What do you think about that?
I think there's some truth to that, but I also think like the fact is the Chiefs did have Tyreek Hill last year, and they were able to get success, moving guys horizontally and letting guys, get yards after catch. I mean, that was like such a huge talking point for both of these teams really going into that game and after that game was like, oh, the Bills can't get yards after catch. The freaking Chiefs killed us on yards after catch. Tyreek Hill freaking would catch the ball running across the field horizontally and then run up the field. So I wouldn't, I know the Chiefs have been kind of maybe throwing the ball a little bit downfield more this year with Valdez-Scantling, but like Hardman's still more of a horizontal sort of speed threat to me and a yards after catch guy. I don't really see Hardman as like a deep threat per se, as far as like air yards is concerned. Valdez-Scantling is more of that guy, right? So if you're really concerned so much about the vertical threat speed wise, Valdez-Scantling is that guy. And really that the Chiefs hadn't had a guy like that. Maybe Demarcus Robinson is the closest thing you could say was that. Maybe Sammy Watkins, but he like obviously was in and out of the lineup for them. But Valdez-Scantling is the guy I think that you need to watch for on these when it comes to the Chiefs' vertical passing game. So the horizontal stuff you still got to watch out for. Mecole Hardman's the guy that's going to be doing that kind of damage to you. But I don't, Micah Hyde was there as like the safety net, but I think this is going to be about tackling, coming up and tackling and making tackles more so than it is going to be about letting guys get behind you. That's my personal view.
Yeah. Charles G comes in and says, do you think we commit a spy to Patrick Mahomes? And Amy Wagner comes in and says Matt Milano will be that spy. I don't know if the Buffalo Bills can afford to commit a spy to Patrick Mahomes. Brandon P comes in and says this have to be a Von Miller game. So Von Miller, I think in the pass rush almost has to act as a spy for Patrick Mahomes, just keeping him sort of in the pocket, not letting him throw on the run, because he's very effective when he does get a chance to throw on the run. So not only cloud that pocket, but also keep him in said clouded pocket. Yep. And the reason why I don't know if we can commit a spy is because of Travis Kelce. I mean, last week the guy had 25 yards, touchdowns. Yeah. This is going to be a game. This is going to be a game about both teams, I think, giving up a lot of underneath stuff, sort of that bend but don't break approach. But that bend but don't break approach doesn't work if guys like Travis Kelce eat on third down and in the red zone. In 2 playoff games versus the Bills, 24 targets, 21 catches, 214 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Bills really don't ever seem to have an answer for Travis
Mhm.
Kelce. And so, here we go. Take number 7. Are they Bills finally going to be able to figure out Travis Kelce?
No, I mean, they figured out Mark Andrews. Look, I get it. They have played very well against the tight ends this year. They held Mark Andrews. He's
Mhm.
having himself a day-to-day against the Giants to 2 catches, right? But you're not going to stop Travis Kelce if you're the Bills. Like, you're the bet. Like, if he catches 2 touchdowns and you limit him to 25 yards, like, you did a great job in that
Mhm.
game, right? Like, you don't want, like, what you don't want Kelce to do is continuously kill you on third downs, giving the Chiefs new sets of downs. If you're the Bills and you're not allowing that big play and you're letting the Chiefs kind of march down the field and Kelce keeps catching first down after first down, it's demoralizing. It's demoralizing for a defense this good. It's demoralizing to see the other team's best player just continuously add a new set of downs against you. So to me, that's more like the touchdowns are a bit more of a variant. Now, Kelsey's been super consistent in scoring, but like
Mhm.
this is one of those games I'm willing to live with. Like, if Kelsey catches a couple touchdowns, if they limit him, limit his third down conversion rate specifically, and limit his ability to get yards after catch as well, because even as a tight end, he's phenomenal at it. And so, like, we can't, I don't think, expect to fully shut down the Chiefs offense.
Mhm.
Like, it's just not realistic. But if you can limit their possessions, limit their third down conversions, and that's Travis Kelce, that's what you really should be looking at if you're the Bills. So no, I don't think you're going to stop Travis Kelce. But I do think that you can maybe have some more success than other teams have had against him, and maybe more success than the Bills have had against him in years past in today's game. But it's still going to be a tall order. I mean, it's going to be tough. You can't shut him down completely.
All right, let's wrap it up here with Patrick Mahomes. You don't shut down Patrick Mahomes. You merely
Oh,
try and limit what he does on the football field. And sometimes that doesn't even work. Like I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast here, he had one pass for over 20 yards in the AFC divisional game, still found a way, utilizing underneath stuff after catch, etc., to beat the Buffalo Bills. But to me, the game plan's got to be pressure with 4, get them off the field on third downs, and field goals, not touchdowns, in the red zone. Do you think the Buffalo Bills have the personnel, what it takes to sort of slow down Patrick Mahomes today?
I think you can a little bit, right? I
Mhm.
do think that there is a chance for the Bills to limit the Chiefs to maybe field goal attempts in the red zone, especially because you have a guy this year that you didn't have a year ago, and that's Von Miller. The
Mhm.
biggest thing, your biggest chance of having success against the Chiefs scoring in general, even in the red zone, creating negative plays, right? You
Mhm.
have to bring Patrick Mahomes down. He's still going to have a great game statistically, but if in key moments on like a second and 9 or a second and 8, you can sack Patrick Mahomes and create like a 3rd and 15.
Mhm.
I mean, give me that. Give me those chances. I'll take my chances with that. We've seen it with the Bills being on the other side of it. Like 3rd and 15, there's no guarantee you're not you're gonna
Mhm.
not get the first down if you're the opposing defense. But if you're the Bills, that's got to be the thing, right? You've got to create negative plays. You've got to create long yardage situations for the Chiefs on third down. And I think having Von Miller today is the X factor. I think in that
Yeah.
the Chiefs may be able to march up and down the field, but if you can at least a couple times in this game create a negative play on second down, create a negative play on third down through a sack, then that could be the difference in kind of forcing them from touchdown versus a field goal.
Yeah, I really do feel like this Buffalo defense, as currently constructed, uh, has Patrick Mahomes to thank, right? Like Jordan Phillips, Daquan Jones, Von Miller, all the draft picks we've utilized on edge rushers like AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, Gregory Rousseau. This all has to do with one thing, and that one thing is trying to pressure Patrick Mahomes with 4 guys. The Bills have shown through 5 games this year that they have the ability to pressure the opposing quarterback without blitzing, and they're going to have to continue to do that, and they're going to have to stay disciplined, and they're going to have to, like I said, they're going to have to really tighten up on third downs and in the red zone. And I do think that this Buffalo Bills defense was constructed to stop Patrick Mahomes, and I think that they have the personnel on paper to do it. It's just a matter of putting it all together, because it looks
Mhm.
good on paper, but then you just watch Patrick Mahomes do crazy things that you didn't think possible. So for the Buffalo Bills, it's going to be about taking what's on paper and executing it on the football field today. and hopefully in the playoffs, unless we can somehow get through the playoffs without playing the Chiefs. That would be fun as well. All right. So onto the Buffalo Bills offense now versus the Kansas City defense. Speaking about on paper, I'm afraid to say this because every time I say stuff like this, I end up looking like an idiot on Monday. And I hate looking like an idiot on the internet. I'm a raging narcissist, but I'm quietly confident that like this Kansas City Chiefs defense, like, isn't very good. I know they're missing some pieces. Trent McDuffie's not playing. Willie Gay's not playing. But outside of like Chris Jones and emerging George Karlaftis and Justin Reed, I'm really not that afraid of this Chiefs defense on paper. But like I said, you have to go out there and execute. I think the recipe is there for the Buffalo Bills to have a big day today offensively, especially with all these injuries. But what are your thoughts? Like, what are your views on this Kansas City Chiefs defense, like in totality?
I mean, in totality, I don't think it's that great. I mean,
Mhm.
but again, that's not really been the issue for the Bills, right? They've been able to move the ball on the Chiefs,
Mhm.
and we torched them in that playoff game last year, arguably with better personnel. They had better personnel, arguably, on the defensive side of the ball than they're going to have in this game. As always, it comes down to their X factor, right? And that's Chris Jones. Is he going to create negative plays for the
Mhm.
Bills? Just like we hope that Von Miller can create negative plays for us. And so for them, it's going to be a huge reliance on Chris Jones, I think, in this game, Frank Clark to an extent. But their secondary is thin and
Mhm.
it's not intimidating. I do like their linebackers, Nick Bolton and Leo Chanel, but they're more thumper type guys. Bolton's a
Mhm.
little bit better in space, but like you don't really worry too much about matchups as far as like your receiving threats against those guys as linebackers. Like the Bills don't really run the ball a ton
Yeah.
anyway, which is really their strength. So I don't know, man. It's like I'll say this, right? Both of these teams on offense
Mhm.
haven't been super efficient on first down. In DVOA, I think the Bills are like 17th or 20th, and the Chiefs are like 17th. One of them 17th, one of them's 20th. So
Mhm.
first down offense is really, to me, they're going to be the key against this Chiefs defense. The Bills have shown the ability to convert on third down and second down. If they can get going a little bit on first
Mhm.
down, I think passing the ball on first down is what I would do if I was the Bills offense, because to me, I'm going to make make this Chiefs defense prove they can stop my passing attack before I let off the gas. That would be
Mhm.
my approach.
And the Willie Gay loss is huge because he's the guy who's always sort of spied Josh Allen. You mentioned Leo Chanel, kind of a thumper. They've been throwing Darius Harris out there to do sort of
Yep.
what Willie Gay does, and obviously he can't do it at the level that Willie Gay does. Willie Gay will be back by the playoffs. He's just currently suspended right now. The one thing that does give me pause is Steve Spagnolo, who's on the other side of
Mm.
the ball. He's a very good defensive coordinator. He has his flaws, but the man is really good at just surprising people and just doing things and scheming things up that throw people, including opposing quarterbacks like Josh Allen, for a loop. I want to sort of play this really quick video. It's about 2 minutes long from Disguised Coverage this week. Anthony Prohaska, he had Matt Lane from the KC Sports Network on, and Matt Lane sort of laid out what the Chiefs defense needs to do in order to sort of stymie or slow down Josh Allen. And a lot of it is they don't have the personnel, so they got to play mind games with Josh Allen. I think he spent a good quality minute and a half, 2 minutes breaking it down. So I'm going to play it for the audience right now, and then we're gonna give our reactions to it.
Steve Spagnolo versus Josh Allen.
Okay.
I do think Josh Allen is clearly getting a lot better on the mental side of the game, pre-snap, post-snap, all of it. However, and this is probably similar with any great young quarterback right now, but that is how you're going to beat some of these guys. I don't think the Chiefs can sit there and cover the Bills receivers for 4 seconds every single play. I don't think there's any ability for them to do that. I don't even know if I think the Chiefs pass rush can particularly beat the Bills offensive line consistently enough to just like let them go out there and rush for. So it's going to be Steve Spagnolo doing his whole kitchen sink act and just throwing every single thing at the Bills and hopefully rattling Josh Allen kind of early in the game. This is what happened not last year in the playoffs, but the year before. It kind of seemed like just in the first, after the first quarter, Josh Allen was unsure of what was about to happen, where pressure was coming from, if it was coming. So I think that's the Chiefs really only significant, not even significant, but like the Chiefs' best chance defensively to come up with a game plan to stop is going to start with just what does Steve Spagnolo have cooked up to beat the mental side of Josh Allen's, passing process.
Do you expect, so this is partially related to my number 3 as well. This is very funny.
Okay.
But before I get into the specifics of mine, do you think in terms of Spags kind of cooking things up for Josh Allen, do you see that as more of more exclusive to third down scenarios, or do you think he tries to throw more things at him on first and second as well?
If this is a game that the Chiefs kind of see as super important, not necessarily must win, but a game that they really want, it will come whenever. That's a Steve Spagnolo staple is 1st and 10 from the 20 on either side. Doesn't matter. Here it is. Here comes cover 0, just out of nowhere. Like, right. He tries really hard to break tendencies. So it doesn't matter. 1st down, 2nd down. I would anticipate if the pressure is working, it will be a lot on 3rd downs, but like, that's kind of the glory of Spagnolo. There's plenty of faults, but what he does best is he kind of mixes stuff up a lot. And I think this is a game where they might need it if they want to not have to score 40 something to win the game.
That last part was the most interesting to me, where he says that if they don't want to get into a shootout with the Buffalo Bills, they're going to have to get creative and disguise their blitzes. You saw Miami have success against, it almost feels like the Miami Dolphins, like their Super Bowl was that game in Miami against the Buffalo Bills. Like they threw out all the stops. It seems like they spent most of their offseason focusing on Josh Allen because their defense hasn't been very good any other game except for that game against the Buffalo Bills, where Josh Poyer got uber creative and he faked pressures and dropped everybody back. Brett Coleman did a really good 20-minute video on it. Steve Spagnolo has done that in the past to Josh Allen in the playoffs. My question to you, Dave, and this could be an overreaction here, or I could be underselling how the Chiefs think about this game. I don't know if you're going to see that from the Kansas City Chiefs today. I don't know if you're going to see that creativity. I think they're going to save that for the playoffs. I think you could just see the Chiefs maybe mix it in here and there on 3rd downs, but I think you're going to see them play almost like vanilla defense and just try to pressure with 4 or 5 guys. And with all those injuries in the secondary, I think they're just going to drop everybody back. Do we see playoff Steve Spagnolo, or do we see like a more toned down regular season version of this Kansas City defense today and what they do best?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about that a little bit on the Twitter Spaces before we started here. I would lean more, like if I was making a prediction, I think I would lean more to like they would probably play this one a little bit more conservatively. That doesn't mean he's not going to send the kitchen sink from time to time, but I don't think it's going to be to the volume that we might see it in like a playoff game. I think you could see it kind of like how Miami did it, right? They did it in spots and it rattled Josh a bit, but like that was the thing. That's the big thing, as he mentioned, was like mixing it up, right? And not giving it away when it's coming. Like if he's doing it all the time, the Bills are going to make adjustments, be able to make adjustments. Josh is going to know it's coming, etc. So I think he's going to pick and choose his spots to do it in this game. But I do think if you're the Chiefs, you're probably for the most part in this game going to be having guys back. I could be completely wrong, and that would be a really interesting strategy. Josh Allen has proven that he's excellent against the blitz. And to that point Brendan's making, he could take off running in these situations as well. So, and by chance says if this game is later in the season, they have a long time between now and the playoffs to make creative plays. And that's kind of where I'm coming at as well. And I think you are too, why I think this will be, Tide says Spags will always be creative. I mean, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah. I mean,
but I do think their best chance is mixing it up and not giving it away like when it's coming.
Yeah, I know Tide, he was in the Twitter space with us, and that this is a point that Aaron Quinn brought up. Aaron Quinn said, like, I think that this may be a more important game to the Chiefs than the Bills because the Chiefs are retooling. We just went through their defensive depth chart. They are shallow. They are thin. I know they're going to get a couple of guys back over the next couple of weeks in Willie Gay and Trent McDuffie. They could still add on before the playoffs. We've seen them make additions late on in the season, but this is a team that's sort of retooling their defense, and their defense is not as good as it has been in years past, and they were not quite that good last year. So they might need that home field advantage because who knows? If that game wasn't played in Arrowhead last year, it was played in Buffalo, you probably might have seen a different result because the Chiefs defense wasn't all that good last year. So this is a Chiefs team who might actually need or want the home field advantage more. I shouldn't say want. I think both teams want the home field advantage, but need the home field advantage more than the Buffalo Bills. But it all comes down for the Kansas City Chiefs to slowing down Josh Allen. I mentioned that Steve Spagnolo stuff. What do you think the Chiefs do to try to slow down Josh Allen in this football game?
Man, I don't know what you can do to slow down Josh Allen. I think, I think what you do is you take a look at what Miami did, right? And I think it's timing is everything. Situationally, when do you bring pressure from what side? I think that the thing that obviously makes a difference in this game too is the Bills are going to have a healthy Gabe Davis, which they didn't have against Miami, and so as far as slowing down Josh Allen, I think it's about timing, right? I think I mentioned you're not going to totally just go vanilla on defense if you're the Chiefs. I think you will time up some blitzes, try to create negative plays, and your best chance really of slowing down Josh Allen is forcing some kind of play like the Miami Dolphins did, where they get Josh Allen to fumble and they recover the ball deep in Bills territory and kind of steal a possession, right? That to me would be the way that the Chiefs could kind of slow him down. But in reality, no one's really slowed him down this year. So I don't know that there is something that you can do. I think it's pick your poison. If you want to blitz, take your chances. You got Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs on these corners. If you want to sit back in zone, let Josh Allen try to march down the field now with his weapons back. Dawson Knox, Isaiah McKenzie, like full slate of weapons for the most part, I'll say, on offense. Then it's pick your poison. So Josh Allen's proven that he can march down the field. I think that the Chiefs keeping the Bills from having first down success, which the Bills really haven't had a ton of first down success this year, is going to be important, kind of keeping the Bills in third and longs. And that's if you're the Chiefs on the team is either forcing a turnover or making the Bills drive these 15, 17 play drives that they've been able to do, and in some cases haven't been able to punch it in the end zone. So it's really not a great situation if you're an opposing defense against Josh Allen, but those are probably the two things that you can look back on and say, like, okay, this worked for a team somewhere along the lines in this season. So that's pretty much all you can do.
All right. Before we get to the receivers, which are going to be a big part of Josh Allen possibly having a big day today, is before we get there, we're going to get to running backs here. In terms of the traditional running game, I feel like it's going to be a non-factor, just like it's a non-factor almost every week. The Buffalo Bills should see some light boxes, and maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised, but I doubt it. But one statistic that Eric Turner pointed out in the Twitter spaces in regards to running backs that's super interesting is that the Kansas City Chiefs have allowed 54 passes to running backs this season. That's the most in the NFL. They've allowed 337 yards to running backs and a touchdown. So Motor and Cook, this could be a big game for them. Chris Kepner also pointed out in that Twitter space that the Bills and the Chiefs leave the middle of the field open more than really any other team in the league. So this could be a Devin Singletary game. This could be a James Cook game. And as most people are pretty happy about, Zach Moss is inactive. What are your thoughts on the running backs? Do we see anything? Do we see a pulse from the traditional run game at all today? Or are they mostly going to be pass blocking and utilized as wide receivers?
Oh man, a pulse for the Bills traditional running game is different than probably most teams. It's like if Devin Singletary gets 40 yards, like that's a pulse for the running game. And I'm being a little bit cynical there, but to me, that's not the strength of this team right now. It's not really the strength of what you want to do against this Chiefs defense either. I think short yardage are still going to be an issue for the Bills. If they get in these 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1s, 3rd and 1s, I think at this point, you probably just need to leave the ball in Josh Allen's hands on these short yardage at this point. Is there going to be a pulse from the running game? Maybe, but I would think it's probably, or from the running backs, I should say, but I could see it being more of a pulse from the passing game than it would be from the actual running game. So I'm kind of not really answering your question, but when talking about the running backs, I think you'd see more of a contribution probably in the passing game than you would in the running game.
Speaking of the passing game, we saw Gabriel Davis go off in the AFC Championship game, and the talk after that game was they made it their mission to shut down Stephon Diggs, and Gabriel Davis went off. Juan Thornhill told Jesse Palmer of NFL Network this morning, we view the Buffalo Bills as a team that has not one, but 2 wide receiver ones, speaking of Gabriel Davis. So there could be a different approach this year in terms of the wide receivers. In the regular season, we saw Dawson Knox go off against this Kansas City Chiefs defense. So we've seen Davis and Knox have big games. if the focus goes to those guys, we all know what Stephon Diggs is capable of. So where do the Chiefs focus their attention today in the passing game, and who benefits because of that?
Oh God. I mean, they're screwed. I mean, like if they focus on Gabe, I mean, I hate to say that, but like the Bills are in a great position, right? Like you talked about how they've been leaving the field wide open. Okay, well, if they turn their attention and try to like double bracket both Davis and Diggs, then the middle of the field should be open for guys like Cook or Singletary coming out of the backfield, whether it's Knox, McKenzie, Shakir, whoever. The middle of the field should be open. Their linebackers aren't the best in coverage. If they decide to not do that and they want to bring guys more around the middle of the field because they know they've been struggling with that, then all of a sudden you have Davis and Diggs in one-on-one matchups against these corners, and Josh is going to be able to get the ball. Like the chemistry he has with Diggs on some of the timing throws and some of these back shoulder throws is just incredible. So like a lot of people are going to look at Gabe Davis' monster game against the Steelers last week and be like, okay, well, it's going to be Gabe Davis again this week, but this could be a Stephon Diggs game in all honesty. And Brendan says it's time for Knox to show why he earned that money, and fully healthy, hopefully now in this game, he can have himself a day. I mean, we know in that regular season game last year against the Chiefs, he had himself a great game. I believe he had 2 touchdowns. I know he at least had one. Someone can correct me on that, but he had the big one down the sideline early in the game. So, man, if you're the Chiefs, I don't really know what you do. I think it comes down to scheme. You try to kind of force the Bills to go down the field 10, 15 play drive outside of trying to force a turnover. Like I think that the Bills have an advantage everywhere across the board in the passing game. And so, and Buy Stock says, I know it's obvious, but we need 7 and not 3s. And yes, that's definitely true.
My expectation, and we've talked about how Steve Spagnolo likes to blitz. My expectation is with all of the injuries in their secondary, they're going to give that secondary all the help they can get. I think that they drop guys back into, cover 3 and cover 4 on today. I know Prohask has been tweeting that all week, that the Chiefs have been dropping guys back into this cover 4 more than they ever have under Steve Spagnolo. And I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries in their secondary. And now they're without even though he's not good, their best corner in Rashad Fenton, no Trent McDuffie. So I think you're going to see them drop into a lot of zone. So Josh Allen's going to have to be patient and not try to force the football down the field. So I think they have a chance to make plays down the field. Eric Turner laid that out in our Twitter spaces this afternoon. 12 personnel brings the safety up, forces them into a single high look. Then you get Diggs, then you get Davis down the field. You open things up for them down the field and with shot plays. But in between all of those things, one of these guys, I think, is going to have the stat line of the game, like pushing 10 catches, pushing 100 yards. Dawson Knox, Isaiah McKenzie, Quentin Morris, Khalil Shakir, Devin Singletary, or James Cook. One of these auxiliary Bills weapons today is going to have themselves an absolute day. And that's what we're going to be talking about on Monday, because I think Josh will be patient. I think they will set stuff up underneath. And I think the Bills will work their way down the field. And that's a long way of me saying, to go back to that point from Buy Stocks, we got to be effective in the red zone, which is where we've struggled this year. So we got to put up points in that red area, because I don't think we're going to be getting those big shots like we did against Pittsburgh, at least not a lot of them. We're going to have to execute in the red zone. And I think all of those auxiliary weapons are going to be a huge part of that. All right, before we get to superlatives, special teams, Bass, Martin, Ferguson, McKenzie, and Shakir versus Harrison Butker, who's coming off of an injury, Tommy Townsend, Isaiah Pacheco does the kick returning, and Sky Moore does the punt returning. Both units are pretty good, led by obviously the Bills and Matthew Smiley, and the Chiefs and a guy who should be a head coach, just like Leslie Frazier should be a head coach, and Dave Taub over there in Kansas City, one of the best at what he does. I think this game is pretty much a wash in terms of special teams. I think both teams have really good units. I don't think there's too much to touch on special teams today. What do you think?
No, it's interesting, right? They got Sky Moore back there doing some of their return game. Like a lot of Bills fans like Sky Moore in the pre-draft process. We got Khalil Shakir back there doing it. So a couple of rookies doing that. Yep. Harrison Butker back first time since week 1 that he's kicked. Not on the injury report. He was battling an ankle injury on his plant leg. So looks like he's back. But you never know. That could get re-aggravated during the game. You never know what might happen there. But 2 of the best kickers, I mean, Butker and Bass are right up there behind the likes of Tucker and Carlson. They're 2 premier kickers in the league.
And I will tell you what, I think the one thing that stood on the inactive list outside of Zach Moss was Balon Spector. I mentioned, like, that dude's been flying down the field on kick and punt return units. If, the Chiefs pop off a big kick return today, a lot of that might have to do with Balon Spector not being out there. How did the Bills adjust to not having Balon Spector? Because it seems like, to me, they're carrying Christian Benford and Cam Lewis because of Tywan Jones's hamstring. So that could play a factor in our teams as well, throwing us for a little bit of a loop, losing Balon Spector. Obviously, we've done pretty well adjusting this year because Jay Kumro has missed a lot of time, and he's a huge integral part of this team's unit. And he's they've replaced him pretty soundly. I haven't noticed his absence too much. All right, let's, ladies and gentlemen, get to our pregame superlatives. And if you guys have never caught this pregame show before, the last 15, 20 minutes or so, we always sort of go through and make some pregame predictions, some fun pregame predictions, and add a little bit of analysis to each of our predictions as well. And we highly encourage you guys in the comment section to play along with us as we pass out the pregame superlatives. So let us know in the comment section who your players for each of these sort of superlatives are, and we'll read some of those off as well. But let's start with our take me higher player of the game, the player for the Buffalo Bills, the star player for the Buffalo Bills, other than Josh Allen, who has to step up in order for the Buffalo Bills to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Can you take me higher to a place where blind men see?
Thanks as always to Bruce Exclusive for that audio clip there. We don't want Creed to come in and kick us off our own channel with their cease and desist. So we got Bruce Nolan filling in for us on the vocals. But who is your take me higher player of the game? We've already got Pops Mafia coming in with Von Miller and BFLO Mafia News coming in with Matt Milano. Who you got here, Dave?
It's Von Miller for me. I think that creating negative plays against Kansas City, we saw the Raiders do it early in the game last week when they got up to that lead against Kansas City last week. Max Crosby creating negative plays, the Chiefs getting in the third in really long situations. That's really a good recipe. It's not a perfect recipe, but it's a really good recipe. And with this defense, as good as they are, I know we've given up some third and longs and they've been kind of killer at some points, but they haven't cost us games yet. This game, you need to put the Chiefs in long down and distance on third down. And that, to me, is Von Miller creating negative plays in the backfield. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a sack. I mean, sacks are great, but he's also leading the team in tackles for loss. So let's not forget that. If the Chiefs do try to kind of come at the Bills with that running game with Clyde and Pacheco and McKinnon, Von Miller can turn a 1st and 10 into a 2nd and 12, pretty quickly. So to me, it's Von Miller. This is why you brought this guy in, for big moments and big games. So for me, it's Von Miller.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of different ways I can go. Josh Clark comes out here and says, Ed Oliver breakout game. Ed Oliver, Jordan Poyer, Dawson Knox. Like, there are a ton of different ways I can go, but I'm not even going to try to be different from you today. I'm going with the same player. I'm going with Von Miller. I mean, at the end of the day, we usually try not to repeat, but I'm just going to repeat today because Von Miller is here because of 13 seconds. That's why Von Miller is a Buffalo Bill. The Buffalo Bills mortgaged their future. They probably cost us Jordan Poyer next year because they need to go out and they need to get that premier edge rusher in order to pressure Patrick Mahomes with 4 guys. Big players make big plays in big games. That is why you brought Von Miller here. It's nearly impossible, I think, to get the pressure necessary on Mahomes with 4 or 5 guys without Von Miller. So Von Miller is also going to be my take me higher player of the game. All right, next up on the docket is our wild card player of the game. This is a surprise player who could affect the outcome of the game.
Guys, why aren't the brakes working? Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
I know Pops Mafia had this for his take me higher, but I'm going to steal it for the wild card. He says Cook touchdown. So a guy like James Cook with Zach Moss inactive could step up in this game. What are your thoughts here on the wild card player of the game? We also got BFLO Mafia News coming in with Jordan Phillips.
Ooh, that's a spicy wild card. Look, I'm going to say I think I think the Chiefs. Okay, there's a lot of dependencies here, right? But I think if the Chiefs do come out and kind of try to sit back and play zone,
Mhm.
I think there's going to be opportunities for Dawson Knox in this game, and like he's coming back from injury. I think it is time for him to step up. I mean, normally we wouldn't have Dawson Knox as a wild card, but he really hasn't had a breakout game yet this year. So I'd really like to see, like, given his past success against the Chiefs, he's had some good success against them.
Mhm.
Giving the middle of the field is a vulnerability for the Chiefs. If they do try to bracket Diggs and Davis, I could see Dawson Knox kind of having a really nice impact in this game. And the only reason he's a wild card here is because he just hasn't had that big game yet. So I'll go with
Mhm.
Dawson Knox as my wild card.
And I'll tell you what, the witching hour in the National Football League is absolutely popping off right now. I got Red Zone in the background, and there are just some crazy things happening around the National Football League right now. But back to our attention back here to sort of the wild card player of the game. Some really good ones. Pops Mafia says Boogie Basham. Jessica Tennis says Quentin Morris. Lauren O saying, listen, Milano, he's going to get that pick today. No drops. He's going to pick six it today for the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to go a little bit different route. I'm going to go with the running back. I feel like running backs are in play here. Even if he is our starting running back, I'm going to go with Devin Singletary, the receiver. I think that Devin Singletary out of the backfield today, we talked at the beginning of the show about how Kansas City is giving up a lot of catches and a lot of yards to running backs. I know our attention immediately goes to James Cook, but I'm going to say Devin Singletary today has over 6 catches and over 70 yards receiving. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with Devin Singletary as my wild card player of the game. And that leads us to our respect you player of the game, an opposing player the Bills need to respect in order to win.
I pure, straight hate you. But God damn it, do I respect you.
All right, who you got for your respect you player of the game?
I think this guy has gotten a lot of heat over the years for some of his antics and some of the things he's done, but he's still a really good player, and he's really, by and large, been the Chiefs' best receiver this year, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. I think you need to respect Juju Smith-Schuster just because, you know, he has that ability for yards after catch. And I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling's kind of the deep threat, but Juju Smith-Schuster is the reliable guy in that receiving group, at least as of right now. And I'd say you still have to respect him. Tyreek Hill's not there, but Juju can convert third downs. I'm obviously not including Travis Kelce because it's an obvious name. So I kind of went away from that. He's like the obvious name. Chris Jones is the obvious name on defense. So outside of Chris Jones and Travis Kelce on both sides of the ball, we know Pat Mahomes, obviously. I think you got to respect Juju. I think Juju could have a nice game. We saw Deontay Johnson and George Pickens have pretty good games last week. Deontay Johnson, not necessarily the same type of receiver as a Juju, but able to work the sideline a bit, able to get yards after catch. We know the Steelers have been, you know, a lot of Deontay's run has been after the catch the last couple of years with Roethlisberger. Juju's the same type of player. So not saying that he's got the same speed as Deontay Johnson, but he is still someone you need to respect. So give me Juju as the respect me player.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to switch it up. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is the obvious one coming in and saying contain Patrick Mahomes. Much like Josh Allen, we kind of like to sort of ignore that one. Travis Kelce, 4 catches last week, 25 yards, 4 touchdowns last week. Obviously, he's someone on third down in the red zone you're going to have to contain. And then Chris Jones is one of the best defensive lineman in football. He can single-handedly take over a football game. We saw that in the AFC Championship game last year. So I'm not going to go with any of those guys. By chance comes in and says Justin Reed playing center field there for him. He's very good. Actually, Juan Thornhill's more of their center fielder, but still playing that safety position, Justin Reed. I'm going to go with the Chiefs screen game. I think that if the Buffalo Bills get beat, Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be because he is effective with the underneath stuff, and that the Chiefs come up with a good screen game and get a lot of chunk plays and big plays utilizing the screen game and the underneath stuff. I think that is the best way for the Chiefs to beat this Buffalo Bills team and to keep up offensively with this Buffalo Bills team today without guys like Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs screen game as my respect you player of the game. All right, on to our fire sale. the hot take, our hottest take heading into this football game.
Oh my God! We're having a fire sale. Oh, the burning! It burns me. Evacuate all the school children. Ah, oh, me. This isn't a fever. Sing, Gray. Can't even see where the knob is.
All right. So what is your hottest take of the game heading into this matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs at 425?
All right. This is a little bit out of left field, but it's a hot take segment for a reason.
Mhm.
I think neither team attempts a field goal. I think that it's just the situations are going to play out to where it's either going to be like you got to go for it, or they'll be so far in their own zone and have to punt that
Mhm.
they're going to be no field goal attempts in this game from either team. All the kicking will be extra points.
Mhm.
I'm going to say no field goal attempts for either team is my hot take in this game.
Yeah, we got a couple of good ones in here. We hold the Chiefs to 14 points, says Brendan P. By chance, I like this one. He says it's a blowout. I just don't know which team. He said that a couple of times in the chat. I don't disagree. Like, I feel like I personally, again, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. I feel like the Bills have a chance in the regular season to run away with this. It's obviously a different story when we get into the postseason, but in the regular season, I think the Bills have a chance. Here today, Stephen Burns comes in and says, I love how you guys are always laughing at those clips. Listen, I'll never get tired of any of those clips, especially the fire sale one. But my hot take for today's game, Dawson Knox was sat last week for a reason. I think he could have played in that game if the Buffalo Bills wanted him to, but they wanted him to be healthy for Kansas City. So I'm going to say Dawson Knox, 100+ yards receiving and a touchdown today. I think he is the player that goes off with all the attention going to Stephon Diggs
Like it.
and
Lines
Gabriel
up with my wild
Davis.
card. Like it.
And then Carolina Frank comes in and says Poyer continues his interception streak, and Jessica Dennis says Case Keenum plays in the fourth quarter. All right, our last topic here for this afternoon. I almost said this morning, but not this morning. This afternoon, our game predictions.
We're sending you back to the future.
Back to the future.
Back to the future. Back to the future. Back to the future. Back to the future.
All right, Dave, take us back to the future. Paint a picture for us. Who wins this football game and why?
So trying to line everything up with like all my earlier predictions. I think that, like I said, I don't think there's going to be field goal attempts in this game. I think it's going to be quite back and forth early in the game. I think both teams are going to have success on offense. I do think the Bills defense is going to play well, but I think that I don't think it will get away from a one possession game, maybe 10 points. That's if a field goal is kicked, which I don't think there will be. 7 points, I think, is probably going to be the widest margin that either team has at any point today. I think late in the game is where the Bills' defensive line shows up. Von Miller shows up after they've come in waves and waves against that Chiefs offensive line, who is very good and will hold most of the game until late when Von Miller makes a big play and the Bills ultimately pull away by a touchdown. So I do think the Bills will win this game. I don't think it's a blow. I think the Chiefs playing at home, they've heard a lot about how the Bills defense is really good. The Chiefs defense is really bad. I just feel like, Patrick Mahomes will be keeping his team in this game. And for that reason, I think the Bills win by a score, 35-28.
All right, we got our predictions coming in here. Brennan P says 28-14 Bills. Carolina Frank says 38-21 Bills. By chance says 42-17 Bills. And Pops Mafia comes in 31-24 Bills. I'm going to go Bills 31, Chiefs 27. And I'm going to say this. Mahomes has the ball with about 2-3 minutes left and a chance to win this football game. And the Buffalo Bills defense gets a stop. I made it 31-27 for a reason. No field goals this time. Mahomes got to drive him down the field for a tutty. I think the Bills get a little bit of a redemption from that AFC divisional game last year. And I'm just petty. And because Colin Cowherd says that Mahomes is better at coming from behind than Josh Allen, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes who fails to come from behind to beat the Buffalo Bills.
Pettiness in full effect.
today. And I think Mahomes might have Allen beat and come from behind wins like 12-11 or something like that. So maybe Josh Allen has a chance to tie that up today. It also depends on what metric you look at. Someone else told me that they were tied, so I don't know which metric. I think everyone looks at those differently, and there's always different ways to sort of navigate that statistic. But wow, the Giants just came from behind to beat the Ravens. The Jets are curb stomping the Packers. The Patriots are curb stomping the Browns. I think Bailey Zappi might be the next Tom Brady. Do we have to worry about that? I think maybe. And the LOL Fins are getting cremated right now currently.
I don't think the Giants
Minnesota
have won
Vikings.
yet, though.
Lamar just fumbled.
Oh, okay.
And now the Giants have the ball now with in the red zone with like a minute and a half left. And then, hey, the Colts might still somehow have a pulse. They are driving down, and they could be 3-2.
I cannot figure out, man. I cannot figure out that.
If Chase McLaughlin misses a game-winning field goal after what they did to Rodrigo, that will be that will be highly, highly laughable. But final thoughts here as we head out. Let you guys finish up with the rest of the witching hour. Matt Ryan just tripped over his own center. Very typical Colts thing to do there with 30 seconds left, trying to drive for a game-winning. Coach, give us your thoughts on Brian Daboll real quick and what he's doing there in New York before we head out.
I mean, it shows you how much coaching matters in the NFL, right? Like this roster is not all that different than what the roster for the Giants was last year. They had a good draft. Wendell had a touchdown today. I know that. And Saquon, wasn't 100% last year, but like their receiving core is pretty much the same as far as guys that are contributing, right? It's Darius Slayton. It's a guy that's been there for a while. They have the rookie Daniel Bellinger making a nice contribution, which I'd love to see since I was a big fan of him in the pre-draft process. But coaching really matters. And you see that there are some parallels with this Giants team and that 2017 Bills team, right? Like you have the 2017 Bills team, the really good defense, and Tyrod Taylor getting them to the playoffs. This Giants team has that same kind of feeling, like not scoring a ton of points, but doing enough on defense, winning games, winning close games. They're gritty. They're scrappy. It's 2017 Bills reincarnated.
And it's really funny. Like you mentioned it right at the top of your point there. Coaching matters. You are seeing the Ravens blow all of these fourth quarter leads. What was the best thing Brian Daboll did? He went out and got Wink Martindale, who for some reason the Baltimore Ravens let go of. If the Baltimore Ravens don't let go of Wink Martindale, maybe the Baltimore Ravens are 4-2 right now instead of, or 5-2 right now instead of 3-3. They probably beat the Bills. They probably don't lose that game to the Dolphins. They probably don't lose this game they're about to lose to the New York Giants as Saquon Barkley slides down the goal line so they can ice it out. Best thing he did.
No, he didn't.
Was go out and get Wink Martindale. So
did he? Did he have a walk-in touchdown?
He had a walk-in touchdown. And he slid the goal line so they could ice it. You got Barkley on your fantasy team?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Hey, I've got some. I've 2 weeks in a row now. I forgot to set my fantasy lineup. So I'm just over fantasy football. I'm over sports betting. I'm too busy to do any of it. As weird as that sounds, because I'm too busy just tweeting mindless shit on Twitter to go set my lineups or bet properly.
I've really pared down my fantasy football. Like I used to be in
I'm
in 3. I will not do more than 3. And that's it. I do have a dynasty team and 2 regular teams. That's it. I don't do anything more than that.
Speaking of dynasty, Alec Pierce just caught the game-winning touchdown for the Colts with 17 seconds left. It's not technically the game winner, but it's likely the game winner over the Jacksonville Jaguars there. So Alex Pierce, Dameon Pierce, and Romeo Dubs for the most part have been. I drafted a lot of rookies this year, and they're paying dividends here early on. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, go enjoy the rest of the witching hour. Get some food and some beverages in you. Hopefully, you were able to pace yourself for that 4:25 start. Maybe go watch a little Geno versus Kyler. Maybe get a little 10 minutes of that in before Bills Chiefs. And when it's the marquee game like Bills Chiefs, there's always some really cool like 4K camera work and pregame stuff leading into the game on CBS. So go enjoy that, even though most of it's probably going to be a bunch of 13-second bullshit. So let's hope we can exercise those demons today. Chris Kepner says time for an edible. Always appreciate that. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?